When it comes to home theater receivers, I doubt you're going to hear anyone tell you that less is more in 2024, unless you're a brand named Emotiva. A year following their release of the MR1, Emotiva has come out with the MR1L, a 9.2 channel Class AB receiver that produces 85 watts per channel into 8 ohms and 100 watts per channel into 4. And yes, before you all, start a petition for standards, that is all channels driven. Actually, if you don't need all 9 channels, the power increases, maxing out at 140 watts into 8 ohms and 200 watts into 4 when listening in stereo. But if you need more power because, baby, you are trying to tow that hi-fi boat up a mountain, this receiver can support 13.2 channels of outboard amplification through its full unbalanced preamp outs. This means that you can add a separate amplifier, or 13, to get more power to your speakers. The Emotiva can also be put into a strict preamp mode, effectively turning it into an affordable preamp processor. Now, if you're hoping for support for 4 subwoofers, you're going to have to settle for 2, but you do get a choice of either balanced or unbalanced connections. For those of you who have a room full of source components, the MR1L has enough analog and digital inputs to accommodate most home theaters. It has 4 sets of RCA-style analog inputs, a single USB, 2 coaxial, and 2 optical digital inputs. What you're not going to find is a built-in phono preamp or legacy video connections. But there's Bluetooth. If you are looking for modern features like streaming music or smart home capability like Google Assistant, be sure to budget for a third-party device like a WIM streamer or a Bluesound Node. Moving on to HDMI, there are 6 HDMI 2.0 inputs and 2 HDMI 2.0 outputs, and that is 2.0B for both. All of the HDMI ports support signals up to 4K 60, as well as most HDR formats like Dolby Vision. The primary HDMI output also has support for ARC and eARC. Now, gamers are going to have to forego next-gen gaming features like 4K 120, VRR, and ALLM, which could immediately put this receiver off your list if you are a serious gamer or you have kids who care about this sort of thing. There is a workaround. You could always plug your console directly into your display, bypassing the receiver altogether. And despite a lack of the latest whiz-bang video tech, when it comes to music and movies, the Emotiva will still work for all of your home theater needs, at least for right now. Now, while the brand didn't step too far outside of their comfort zone, the MR1L's design features a sleeker, all-glass faceplate rather than the usual brushed black metal. The display is big, bold, and easy to read from across the room. For manual adjustments, though, the on-screen menu is still going to be your best bet, as the display isn't really usable, but Emotiva gets a few points from me from being able to dim and even defeat the front display using the remote. Speaking of on-screen display, or OSD, visually it's pretty basic and clunky. However, you get a lot of customization, rivaling even Yamaha. The manual control over damn near everything is something that I love, but yeah, you knew this was coming. The menu is sluggish. Communication between the OSD and remote takes a hot second to sync, which can be really annoying. Emotiva uses EMO-Q, which is similar to other auto room EQ solutions like Odyssey or Dirac. With a series of test tones and the included microphone, you can automatically tune your speakers to your room, for tighter bass, better dialogue intelligibility, and just hopefully a better overall home theater experience. One of the most impressive features, though, is the inclusion of up to 11 channels of full manual parametric EQ for the front 3 channels, as well as 7 and 5 bands of PEQ for the surrounds and subwoofer channels. Both methods work really well, and they allowed me to tune everything from the KLH Kendall 2Fs to our Klipsch Cornwall 4s and even our reference KEF R11 Metas using filters that I created in Room EQ Wizard. While I'm disappointed in the aging menus and lack of next-gen features, the presence of full PEQ is enough to keep the Emotiva in the running, at least for me. Did you know that every video you watch on our channel is filmed in 6K and higher? Those files take up a ton of room, and when not managed correctly, they really slow my computer down, which isn't great when you need to meet a deadline. This is why we make sure our MacBooks use the latest tech, like the app from today's sponsor, Clean My Mac X. The Clean My Mac app is so easy to use. It frees up valuable space and maximizes my Mac's memory while protecting important files from malware and other viruses, so our Macs always operate at their best. Not only does the app work, it actually works better than a lot of all the other file cleaning apps I've tried over the years, but Clean My Mac finds a way to speed up my Mac's performance where others have failed. It's simple and intuitive to use, whether I'm just doing a quick scan, which only takes a minute or two, or, doing a deeper spring cleaning of my entire system. The before and after gains in speed are a lifesaver, especially when I'm editing videos like this one. So if you're a Mac user like I am and you want to make sure your system is at its best 24/7, follow the link in the description to try the app for free for 7 days. Clean My Mac X is offering my followers an exclusive discount, 30% off annual licenses for 1, 2, or 5 Macs. Just click the link below to learn more. Now, back to the video. If you're at all familiar with Emotiva's house sound, specifically, I'm talking about their new line of Bass-X amplifiers, the MR1L should sound very, very familiar. I couldn't detect any real differences in tone when listening to music in stereo or when relying on the MR1L as a preamp connected to a Bass-X A2 amplifier, at least at everyday volumes. The MR1L plays back music with confidence, and it has an impressive amount of control over the speaker's drivers, and it's going to give you that sensation of noticeable grip down low. There's solid intelligibility in the mids and good but controlled extension in the highs, and this provides for a more dynamic punch top to bottom. And unlike less capable receivers or cheaper Class D amps, the receiver won't gloss over recording subtlety or muddy up texture. The sound on the whole is well balanced with a mostly neutral leaning tone. Well-recorded rock tracks from, say, A Perfect Circle and live recordings like Tori Amos's Legs and Boots tour, they sounded more like I was using a budget pair of separates than, say, a sub-$2,000 AVR. The Emotiva also does a really nice job placing performers and instruments in solid three-dimensional space without having to do any sort of like faux surround sound mixing. When it comes time to watch your favorite movie, the Emotiva has the power to scale sound really nicely, whether relying on 3, 5, or all 9 of its channels. None of the speakers we use to test the MR1L cause the amp to trip up at all. While the closely priced Marantz Cinema 70 is the more feature-rich, easier to use, and let's get real, sexier solution, there is no question which is the more confident and robust AVR. Whether we are watching sci-fi flicks like Alien Covenant or gritty crime dramas like Prisoners, the MR1L delivered a full and rich cinematic experience. As much as I enjoyed watching movies with the Emotiva, there are 2 things to keep in mind. First, I highly recommend using Dolby or DTS standards for speaker layout to get the best surround sound performance because the Emotiva can't create those phantom channels or do room mapping the way, say, the Sony 7000 ES does. As a result, your surround sound channels may sound a little bit more directional. Second, if you like a receiver that has dialogue aids or processing to improve muddied dialogue, you may need to shop elsewhere. Now, I found the dialogue to be plenty intelligible and had no issues there, but KRISTI may disagree, though I'm going to go on record as saying it's not always the Emotiva's fault. Sometimes it's just a bad mix. Rarely is a product perfect, so let's just talk about where the MR1L can improve. Now, for music and movies, the sound is great. But using and living with this receiver was not the best. One of the biggest, let's call it annoyances, was the audible hiss followed by the pop that occurs every time you switch between sources, apps, or even programs within a single streaming service. Now, the severity of this 1-2 sonic slap to the ear hole
Mother! Hit me in the ear!
Is directly tied to your volume. So if you were rocking out to your favorite song and then suddenly switch over to the news, brace yourself. Emotiva is aware of this issue, though I've received no word on whether or not it will or if it can be fixed. In a world where everything moves quick, get ready to slow your roll with the Emotiva. The MR1L takes a long time to boot up and acquire a signal, especially an HDMI one. Since this receiver doesn't really do any video processing, I'm actually pretty confused by its sluggish nature. I mean, it is Anthem level slow. The remote commands are equally laggy, especially when you're trying to do complex manual adjustments to an entire surround system. And while I love the inclusion of full PEQ for all of the channels, be warned that if you choose to manually configure your system this way, it's going to take some time. Then, of course, there's just the complete lack of modern-day features. Like I said earlier, if you want an AVR for your next-gen gaming console, or maybe you want to integrate the Emotiva into your smart home without needing a third-party device, this receiver, and maybe any receiver from Emotiva, is just one you should probably skip. Now, the MR1L isn't the only stripped-down AVR on the market. Macintosh, they brought their MHT300 to market late last year, and it arguably does even less than the Emotiva, while costing 6 times more. I directly compared the two head-to-head on our KEF R11 Metas, and while I preferred the look of the Macintosh, the Emotiva was every bit its equal, and at least sound-wise, it might have been its superior. Now, to be fair, the Mac is a ground-up, American-made AVR with support for 8K and Dirac, not to mention more power, all channels driven. But I'm not sold on whether or not those three things are worth the premium over the MR1L here. One of our favorites, the now aging Onkyo RZ50, it outright embarrasses the Emotiva when you consider all of the features and conveniences you get, and never mind new receivers from brands like Marantz, Denon, and Sony. I mean, take your pick. From Sony's 5000 ES, the Marantz Cinema anything, or the X series from Denon, all of these receivers will be easier to live with day to day and have more current features that just make them more approachable for more people, especially if you like to game or stream music from, say, your laptop or smartphone. If we're just talking sound quality, now the Emotiva more than holds its own, but considering it costs about the same as some of the competition, I would not be surprised if you chose something else that has all of the features you need. And that really is the question of the day. You know, what is more important to you? I definitely enjoyed the MR1L, and I'm happy with its sound quality, but let's be honest, I'm not about to trade my Sony ES for it. So that's enough out of me and what I think of Emotiva's MR1L AV receiver, but before we get out of here, I have to know, what do you think?
I think Emotiva is one of the undisputed kings of making affordable products that give people access to gear that they might otherwise not be able to afford.
100% agree.
And I love that about this brand.
Yes.
You know, we talk a lot about deciding what's important to you as a listener or as a movie watcher. I guess it's really, I don't think it's a surprise, but I'm just really struggling with why they came out with this receiver. I mean, this is Emotiva's second receiver to come out in about a year. I mean, let's not forget the MR1.
Right.
Like, what's really different here? There are still some pretty obvious omissions that keep, in my opinion, that keep this receiver from being competitive. I guess my question is, why should anyone sacrifice one thing for another when they don't have to? You know, and I know that sound is very important and the ability to have this kind of power and, you know, all of the, you know, if you want to add 13 amps to power every single thing in your system, I get it, and that is something I appreciate. The PEQ, I get it, I appreciate it. You can get a lot of this stuff
Elsewhere.
Elsewhere.
Yeah.
And they're not saying, oh, well, sorry, there's no streaming.
Yeah.
And there's no next-gen game support. The MR1 is not really any different as far as the issues or the things that are missing. They're basically the same.
Oh, 100%. I don't excuse, like you, I want to be perfectly blunt, and Emotiva knows that I feel this way. I don't excuse any of the omissions. I really don't. And I don't honestly always buy the reasoning or rationale for why things are omitted, I should say. But the thinking or the thought process behind these products, I think has to do with streaming and those type DACs and all of that stuff. Those change with the wind, and every day there seems to be a new one. And so the thinking, it probably is either A, enthusiasts are going to want to try all of those different things and experiment and find what works best for them, even though that's an added cost. Why put it in a receiver, charge you for it, and then maybe it goes out of date? And this is the same thought process that, you know, Macintosh used in the MHT300. And these are the same gripes that I raised with them. And so at a minimum, I will go on record as saying, if you're going to omit something, lower the price, which Emotiva has done. So that's one thing. I have a feeling when it comes to the conveniences side of things, it's more or less people are going to want to do their own thing on the side, so let them.
Why? Why come out with the L?
I'm not trying to be an apologist. You ask a lot of questions, you make a lot of assertions, and so I'm doing my best for those people who might be at their keyboard right now going, yeah, you know, what she said. I'm just trying to say you are all, I don't want to use the word right, but you are all justified in thinking, feeling, and reacting this way. You are. At the end of the day, at least with respect to the HDMI issue, I believe Emotiva as a brand miscalculated. Plain and simple. I think they felt as if the world didn't really need these types of things. And so they pushed all their chips to the center on power and sound quality, which there's going to be an equal number of you watching right now that are like, but that's all that matters. You are who they are looking. The fact is that gaming is important. And with a lot of televisions having 2.1, they may have miscalculated and said, you just plug it into your TV. But we've seen an entire rash of televisions that support HDMI 2.1 with refresh rates and stuff up to 120 and all that jazz. However, they're limited to 2 of the 4 HDMI ports, one of which is an ARC and eARC port. In that instance, if you are a household with multiple gaming consoles, you need a receiver with 2.1 in order to enjoy all of your gaming consoles, next-gen gaming consoles at least, without having to get up, unplug one, and replug in another. And that's where the benefit of something like a receiver, and that's the promise of a receiver, really. The receiver is supposed to be the brain and the brawn of your home theater. And the MR1L is the operator, working the patch cables, and the brawn. It doesn't have much brains. And so it's kind of like an old school V8 retro muscle car. I can't say why you should pick one thing over the other. I end the review with, I enjoyed the MR1L. I do believe it sounds great, but I also think the 7000 ES is great. And the 7000 ES does absolutely everything that I would ever want a home theater receiver to do. And there you have it. And the 5000 ES is kind of like the MR1L of the 7000 ES. Which,
if you want to use the more modern day conveniences, you're going to end up spending. You're going to
spend that money.
Thing,
yeah, of course.
So.
And then there's options like Yamaha that have streaming and 8K 60, 4K 120 support that also have PEQ. Maybe not as many channels if memory serves, but those are also going to sound great, be really well powered, and probably cost you about the same as the MR1L, if not less. But then, of course, there is like the Marantz Cinema 70, which is, I think, $1,000 now. And yeah, the Emotiva MR1L is more confident in the power delivery, all channels driven, and will drive harder to push speakers to louder levels without strain. Let's make no mistake about that. But the Cinema 70 has full preamp outs, and for most people will still have enough power to do all of the things that the MR1L does, only the Cinema 70 is way easier to live with and far less quirky. And sounds really good. Still really, we're still big fans. We rock Emotiva power amps in our system all the time. And yeah, but anything else before we get out of here? Oh, I do want to add one thing.
Oh, what?
I do want to add, because I can hear people going, maybe you got a bad unit.
Oh, God.
Maybe you got a bad unit. And we actually got multiple MR1Ls sent to us because when we first heard that pop, crack, snap, crackle, pop, we thought we had a bad unit and got on the phone, notified them of the snap, crackle, pop, and said, please send us another one. And they did. They slapped leather. Another one was overnighted to us. We have 2, and they perform exactly the same. These are known issues with this product and platform. So just wanted to be clear about that. Tell us what you think. What is the most important thing in a home theater for you? Is it power and sound quality? Is it features and processing? Or is it both? Sound off. I wish I could do a poll. I wish I could attach a poll to the comments, because that would be really interesting. Maybe we'll put a poll in the community post after you watch this video. you can take the poll. I don't know. Anyway, if you like this video, please do give it a thumbs up, like, and subscribe. Go ahead, ring that bell so that you're notified when new videos come out. If you use any of the links that Kristi's left for you down below, know that that's a great way that you've continued to show your support for this channel and the work that we do here. And both of us thank you very, very much for doing that. Follow me on Instagram at Recovering Audiophile, and that is it for us today. So remember, please, the only person who has to like the sound of your system is you. So happy listening, everybody. Thank you so much for sticking with us through this probably double-length episode, and we'll see you on the next one.